Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for coming. Yeah, my name is David Murray, Principal Architect, been with Amazon for about 10 years. Erin, you want to say hello?
I'm Erin Quinn. I'm a Principal Account Manager, and I've been here almost 7 years.
So, there's a reason we're going to jump into this really quick. Erin and I have been giving talks. We co-started an emotional intelligence group at Amazon. We've spoken at the last 3 or 4 reInvents. We teach a lot of customers, and internally at Amazon, our focus is on how do you avoid imposter syndrome and how do you build self-confidence. And we submit our session for this year, and normally we give this in a 2-hour workshop. And someone calls us up and says, okay, we like your session. You're the ones who talk around avoiding overwhelm and avoiding stress. Like, yeah, that's us. Well, can you do your talk in 20 minutes and do it in a packed stadium of people where they can't actually even relax? This is, do we get a free ticket to come? Yeah, okay, we'll do it. So we kind of had to get through some of the content a little quicker. Hopefully my accent, trying to move faster, doesn't harm things. But as I said, our side job outside of working together with customers is doing emotional intelligence. And what we do is we just provide guidance. And we focus on areas. We used to have a podcast internally at Amazon. And we took a ton of lessons of how do people at Amazon who have been around for 10, 12 years, got promoted, how are they being successful? What's their key secret? And it turns out that they were confident. They learned early on how to avoid the imposter syndrome. Anyone who's ever worked at Amazon or ever worked in their life in tech has probably had imposter syndrome. And we took lessons of how did they get to a phase where they could build confidence and avoid imposter syndrome. So our talk is all around, if there's one lesson to take from this, is the importance of confidence for a long-term career, either at Amazon, if you want to come work for us, or in your own tech job. So we focus really on 3 areas. There was 3 things we learned. And confidence comes with resilience. So they go hand in hand. Because to be confident means you have to maintain or sustain it over longer periods. The one thing, the first lesson we learned, and we'll talk more about this, is those people who were successful had focus. You look around here, there's probably 1,000,001 things to learn, 1,000,001 announcements we've had, and every one of them seems exciting. But only a small few of them, your customers or your teams, or you're going to use. So how do you distill the noise and gain focus? That was the number one thing we learned, and we'll talk about that during the talk. The reason focus was so important, and a narrow focus, was you could make progress. Most of us have been through years in our career where you get to the end and go, I really don't know if I've achieved anything or anything meaningful. So progress is one of the key things in terms of sustain and self-confidence. And when it builds rock solid self-confidence from a flywheel perspective, if you've ever read any Amazon book, been to AWS, seen anything reInvent, you know, we're big on flywheels. The reason confidence is important that we learned was they're confident to say no. Does anyone not say no enough? All right? Everyone requests your time. Everyone's looking for all sorts of things to help them. And we don't say no. We get to the end and we realize we haven't achieved what we need to do. Because saying no gives you back time. And from a flywheel perspective, if you've got focus and you've got more time to spend on the areas that are key for your focus and your goals or your customers' goals, it leads to a flywheel effect of making more progress and building self-confidence. People start asking us, well, how does that translate into working inside of Amazon? So we actually spoke with a principal engineer who helped us translate all of this you see into Amazon leadership principles. So inside of Amazon, this would look like this. Focus is deep dive, or dive deep. An area, a special area, or an area of where you're strong, spending a lot of time on that, and that leads to progress, which is earning trust. If you've worked with customers, or you've worked with an account team, or a team who are trying to achieve something, the number one thing in terms of getting confidence is earning trust. That allows you to deliver results. When you can deliver results, you can own more. You can take on bigger projects, achieve bigger things, which comes to thinking big. So from a flywheel perspective, and if anyone's interested in the Amazon culture, that's how everything we talk about translates into our leadership principles. have to go because, or I don't have to go, I will still be here, I have to go faster. But jumping into focus, which is to dive deep. How do you actually gain focus? So from an emotional intelligence perspective, focus is what is so much connected with resilience. And the number one book, if anyone's interested on building resilience, is this book, Grit, called Angela Duckworth. And all she teaches is to have resilience, you need to take yourself out of short-term thinking and build a longer-term plan. Longer-term thinking changes your narratives. So having a longer-term vision means when you have that day or week or even a month of stressful situations, you're still focused on a bigger goal, which is why religions have been so successful. You're always focused on the non-you, the bigger goal, the longer term. This is the greatest Irish president that has ever lived. We've claimed so many American presidents. We even have a place in Ireland called the Obama Plaza. Or not the Obama Plaza, the JFK Plaza. We have got an Obama Plaza as well. I changed that picture recently from Obama to JFK. This was his big vision. We choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. What that done, at the time he gave this speech, they didn't even know how to build most of the technology that could get them to the moon. But when you look inside NASA from the day after he gave that talk, they were no longer building engines or building parts. They were sending people to the moon. And there's a famous story, he went back a year later, he bumped into a janitor, he says, hello, I'm John F. Kennedy, I'm the president of the world, or president of the free world, I think Americans call it. I'm the president of the USA. What do you do? And he says, I'm Mick, I'm putting a person on the moon. It changes to how they view, it changes their narrative. And it gives them resilience, because he's no longer going in to clean up after people, he's going in to put a person on the moon. It's a big long-term vision. And that's why vision is super important, to give yourself focus, taking those big goals. I want to spend more of the time on this. We used to get asked a lot, Erin and I, inside at Amazon, well, how do you create a vision? How do you think long-term? And how do you break that down into something that's workable? And a funny story is Erin and I didn't really have an idea how to do it. We were researching, we had our own little ways of doing things. And then we really forgot, we do this a lot inside of Amazon with our customers. When we're building services, it's a famed kind of process called the working backwards process. And we never thought of using something like that on ourselves. Using it on your own career. And if you know what a working backwards is, that's where we start with a headline, that's your vision, and it goes into a press release. And the press release ties an emotion to the vision. And then we go into frequently asked questions, which allow you to then break down that vision into how am I actually going to achieve it. So the 3-step process we have is start with working backwards. Start with a big headline. If you could do nothing from any of the advice we give, except for in 2025, just create a headline. What does success look like for you, or for your customer, or for your team, for whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be for work, it can be in any area of your life. It will give you something to work backwards from. It gives you that number one thing we spoke about, which is focus. Create the goal. So when you have your vision, your headline, your focus, when it comes to making progress and earning trust, you have to break it down into manageable tasks. In a working backwards process, that's where you use the FAQ, the frequently asked questions. In your own process, you can use whatever it is. But what you do is you take the vision and you understand in Q1, Q2, Q3, what do I need to work on to make that a success? And that's all about making progress and earning trust. And this is probably one of the most important lessons we're going to talk around is organizing your time. How many times do you look at your calendar and it looks like a graffiti wall of other people have just splattered things all over, right? I was like, I don't even know why I'm attending 90% of these meetings. The problem with that is you haven't taken ownership of your own calendar. So when we say create the goals, you can create your goals and you can create your plan, but you'll make no progress unless you're blocking time out in your calendar to do it. And Erin's going to talk about some of the techniques you can do. What do you do when you block out that time? But what's super important on this is making time to make progress on your goal, whether it's every day or every week. I have time blocked out mostly every second day in my calendar to focus on one of the goals I said I was going to achieve. Because in my mind, if I can achieve that goal, I'm probably going to be successful, which means my customer is going to be successful. We don't get to create goals for ourselves inside of Amazon unless it's related to a customer. So if I can achieve a big goal, the customer is going to be successful. And that's how it relates to our culture. So I'm going to pass to Erin, who has a much better accent. She's much nicer. She's better looking than me. And she talks a lot slower. So she's going to talk around how do you take that goal and then use tactically to actually make progress and deliver results.
You can see why I team up with him, because he's very kind. But we're going to get into achieving results. So think about that flywheel, right? We talked about you're going to dive deep, you're going to earn trust. And what David said is true. If you don't have the confidence, the wheel stops spinning and you're pretty much stuck. Now, a lot of people try to restart the process over and over again. Think about how many times you've set a goal for yourself, and a month in, 2 months in, you've given up. Have you thought about why? It's probably because you didn't have the confidence to continue forward. So let's talk about some of the mechanisms that can help you here. So seeking help is not a sign of weakness. Seeking help is actually understanding how those around you can support you. So twice I've listened to an audiobook called Who Not How. It was that impactful that I listened to it a second time. Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy put this book together, and they really talk about how you can focus as hard as you want and put in as much effort as the how, but if you don't have the who's to support you, you're likely not going to be successful. Now, what's interesting is the who's are all around you. You just have to have conversations with people and let them know what your goal is, right? If you don't share your goals, people can't help you. Once those who's are involved and they're passionate about helping you, you're going to get to that end goal even quicker. And you're also, in return, going to be giving back to them because you're going to be opening up opportunities for them to participate in activities or allow them to support you in ways that they wouldn't have been able to support you otherwise. Accountability partnership is another great way, right? Find an accountability partner. This guy right here, he's my accountability partner. We met shortly after I started at Amazon, and I have to tell you, I was completely overwhelmed. I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life, and I've been here now 7 years. And I thought, what am I doing here? I don't fit in. How am I going to survive? How am I going to be successful? We started talking weekly, and the interesting part about David and I is we're kind of opposites. He's really the big thinker in our relationship, and I'm the planner. And what we do is we balance each other out. So, funny story, he thought we were actually presenting on Tuesday this week. So on Monday, when I double-checked with him and said, so are we ready for Thursday? He said, you mean Tuesday? And I said, no, Thursday. What would have happened, right? But he brings amazing ideas to the table, and without him, I may not be up here on the stage, right? Because 4 years ago, I set a goal for myself. I had a vision that I wanted to speak on the reInvent stage. But listen, guys, I'm an account manager. I'm not that technical. reInvent really isn't for me. So I thought. But I wrote my vision, I decided who was going to help me, and 3 years ago, I stood up on stage for the first time. This is year number 3. I figured out, how to do it, and I've been able to continue to do it. And I absolutely love it. So I want to share that with you, right? Write it down, share it, talk about it, get others to help you find your who. Now, what else can you do? This is a hard one. Discipline is hard. We're all busy. I've got 2 kids at home. I've got a husband who travels. I travel. It feels like I never have enough time in my day to get anything done. You have to own your calendar. Like David said, don't let your calendar become somebody else's graffiti wall. People are putting calendar invites on there. Ask why. Do you need to be there? What's the purpose? And do that for others as well. Don't just invite people to a meeting because you think they should be there. Do they have a need to be there? Create routines. I recently moved time zones, and it really helped the balance in my schedule because I actually start work a couple hours before everybody else does. I'm on the East Coast now versus the West Coast. And I use that time for my focus work because nobody is distracting me. So find something like that and build that routine into your calendar, but don't let it go. The worst thing you can do is, lunch is another one. Block out lunch. Don't give your time away. Make sure it's for you. If it's just for a mental break, to get up from your desk if you're working from home, or to get out of the office for a bit, you need that separation. Don't give somebody else that time. It's your time. We have 24 hours in a day. You're not going to get back tomorrow. So if you don't do it today, will it ever get done? And stay focused. That's what's going to build that confidence, right? So you'll see the flywheel start to build that momentum. And that's what Jeff Bezos talked about so long ago, is once that momentum starts, it doesn't stop. So keep it going. So what are some of the techniques you can use? David and I have been using the Pomodoro technique for a really long time. We live in different cities. We always have. We used a virtual conference to hold each other accountable. We'd put each other on video, and we'd actually do co-writing together. Sounds funny, but when you know somebody else is there watching you, making sure that you're dedicated to the task, you're more likely to complete it. You can use Pomodoro on your own as well. You set a timer, you focus, you walk away for a couple minutes, and you come back, do a couple sessions. Wonderful technique if you have the discipline to actually adhere to it. Mind mapping is another thing that I highly recommend. If you think back when we were in school, we would write outlines, right? To help us organize our thoughts and get ready for presentations or reports that we were writing. When we do narratives at Amazon, we use mind maps. What's the purpose of the document? Who is our audience? What do we want to convey? All those things can be easily done in a visual mind map, which gives you the starting point to then dig in. You use your Pomodoro technique to actually do your writing, and before you know it, your document is written. I also encourage you to measure the time you're spending. So your Outlook calendar, I color code mine, and the output that you see on the screen is actually from an internal tool that we offer at Amazon. David and I are two of the co-creators of Time Block. And what we do is we import our calendars in, and we can visualize how our time is spent. So if you're looking to get promoted, and you're spending 80% of your time on operational support related tasks, do you think you're going to get promoted? Probably not, because you're not doing those big things that you need to write in your promotion document to move yourself forward. And until you see that, sometimes it just doesn't click in. So I know you guys don't have access to Time Block, but there are other ways you can do it. You can use a spreadsheet to keep track of how your time is spent. But unless you look back and analyze what you're doing, you're kidding yourself because, again, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I really don't ever expect anybody to work more than 8 hours. So as we wrap up, and like David said, this was a quick session, just 20 minutes out of our normal 2-hour workshop. Remember that overwhelm starts with a lack of focus. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, take a step back, really think about where you can dive deep and where that focus is going to come from. The progress comes next, and that's when you start to earn trust with others around you. Find your who's, get your support, have your vision and your plan. You're going to start to build your confidence. And what does that lead to? In the flywheel, it leads to saying no, which gives you more time, which ultimately puts it back into the focus. And that's really how you're going to use this to maintain your long-term vision. David, anything you want to add on our key takeaways?
No, I think the key thing is, if you're going to avoid overwhelm, it comes down to confidence. But you can't get confidence until you understand what are the key areas of importance for you, your team, your customer, and spend as much time as you can in those areas. And at least spending some time each week to make small amounts of progress so you can measure yourself against yourself and feel confident of, I'm starting to achieve towards my goals.
So in our normal session, I ask people, do you know what the number 4,000 represents? Now, if you yell out an answer, I probably won't hear you anyways, and I only have 16 seconds left. So what I'm going to tell you is 4,000 represents the average weeks you'll have in your lifetime if you live till 80. Figure out how old you are, understand how many weeks you've already consumed and what you have left, and then decide how you want to use your time moving forward. That's the end of our presentation. David and I will be available afterwards if you guys have any questions or want to chat.
I think one important thing is, as you can see, emotional intelligence doesn't have the same marketing as artificial intelligence. And it means sometimes we get less sessions. If you really are interested in hearing more around emotional intelligence and sessions like that at reInvent, if these help, please get a chance to do the survey. We don't always ask that, but we want to make sure that people are getting value from these sessions, and we're doing more and more around mental health, avoiding overwhelm, because in my opinion, it's super important for people in the tech industry because we move so fast every day. So if you get a chance to fill out one survey, please do this one, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.